Posting to the General Ledger, Lesson 8. You should have completed exercise 4.8 on your own by now before watching this lesson. It is vitally important that you do it on your own first, as otherwise you will have no idea what it is that you do or don't understand, even though you may think you do when you listen to what I tell you. The first thing that you need to do is take all the opening balances that are given in the trial balance and enter these as opening balances in the general ledger accounts. Capital is an owner's equity account, and so it will have a credit balance. You would show the date correctly as 2011 June the 1st, and you will do this for all the balances subsequently. The balance brought down is 50,000 Rand. Drawings is a decrease in owner's equity and therefore will be entered on the debit side as a balance brought down of 5,500. Equipment is an asset, and as such it will have a debit balance of 35,000. Trading stock is also an asset with a debit balance brought down of 15,000, and bank is also an asset with a debit balance brought down of 2,000. Again, please check that you have entered all your dates correctly as 2011 June the 1st. In the nominal accounts section, or the income and expense accounts, sales is an income that will increase equity on the credit side, balance brought down of 87,500. Cost of sales is an expense, which you will show on the debit side as it decreases owner's equity, balance of 50,000. Wages is also an expense, and so will also be shown on the debit side as a balance brought down of 9,000. Stationery is an expense which decreases equity and has a balance brought down of 12,000. Water and electricity is an expense, so has a debit balance of 4,000. And telephone also is an expense decreasing equity and has a debit balance of 5,000 Rand. Once you've entered all of these, you can then go and have a look at the journal entries and see what you need to use. The first thing that you will need to show is the capital contribution of 75,000 Rand. The information is given to you below the CRJ in the note that sundry accounts is made up of capital on the second for 75,000. Remember that you enter the sundry account entries first as they happen on the day that it happened, and so to get your date order correct, you will need to start with these. As it's a contribution that increases equity, it will be entered on the credit side on the second. The contra account is bank, as that's the other account involved because it came from CRJ 3, and the amount 75,000. The other sundry account entry that you need to use is from the CPJ. Below the CPJ, the note tells you that sundry accounts is made up of water and electricity on the 3rd of 200, equipment on the 18th for 5,000, and telephone on the 30th for 400. Water and electricity as an expense, which decreases equity, so you will enter the 200 on the debit side. The day is the 3rd, contra account bank, CPJ 3. Equipment from the same piece of information is an asset. In this case, it's increasing as you must have bought equipment if you spent money. On the 18th, contra account bank as you spent money to get the equipment. Folio CPJ 3 and the amount 5,000. Of course, as you would be entering these pieces of information, if you had to complete the journals, you would also be showing the folio references, in this case B3 for equipment, in the journal itself to show where the 5,000 Rand was posted to. Now that you've used all the sundry account information, there's still telephone you will need to enter on the debit side. On the 30th, bank CPJ 3 for 400 Rand. Once you've entered all of the sundry account information, you can then go and post the totals of the journals, starting with the CRJ. Analysis, of course, has no total, but you will need to post the bank entry on the debit side. Your details will be sundry accounts, as there are a lot of other accounts involved. Folio CRJ 3 and the 83,750 will go on the debit side, as bank is an asset that is increasing as you are receiving money. Sales is an income, and so will be credited as it increases equity. So you will put the 8750 on the credit side of sales. The day is the 30th, as you are posting the totals, which always get posted on the last day of the month. The details is bank, as that is the other account involved, and the folio CRJ3. Cost of sales will be posted to the debit side as cost of sales is an expense, which decreases equity. On the 30th, your contra account is trading stock and it's from CRJ3. Very important, you now need to remember that as shown by the contra account of trading stock, this entry also needs to be posted to the trading stock account. It's also easy to remember why it goes to the credit side. Cost of sales is debited, and so trading stock must be credited with 5,000 Rand. Notice your contra account is cost of sales, as you just debited that account. The other way of figuring out what to do in the trading stock account is to use logic. Remember that in the CRJ you're receiving money, therefore you have sold the stock. If you've sold the stock, you have less stock, and therefore your asset is getting smaller, and you would need to credit it. In the cash payments journal, you will need to post the 18,280 of the bank column total to the credit side of the bank account, as your money is decreasing, and an asset that decreases must be credited. As you did from the receipts, you can put as your details sundry accounts, which simply represents the fact that there are lots of accounts and you don't feel like writing them all out. This is acceptable. Your trading stock column will be posted to the debit side of the trading stock account as your asset is increasing. Your contra account is bank and your folio obviously CPJ3 for the 10,100. Wages is an expense and so will be debited by the amount of 1450 that was paid. Details bank, folio CPJ3 as you did before. Stationery is an expense and therefore is debited as it decreases equity. On the 30th, your contra account is bank, it's from CPJ3 and you will enter the amount of 1130. Again, just a quick reminder that your trading stock amount in the cash payments journal only went to trading stock. Nothing else was involved. Once you've posted all the information from the journals, you are now ready to do your totaling. The capital account needs to have a subtotal of 125,000. Notice that you have a single line above the subtotal and nothing beneath, as you will carry on next month. Drawings doesn't need to have anything done to it, as there's only one entry in that account. Equipment, like capital, is subtotaled with 40,000 Rand. Trading stock, on the other hand, has entries on both sides, so you will look and see which side is bigger. On your debit side, you have a total of 25,100, and on the credit side, 5,000. Obviously, the debit side is bigger, so that becomes your total of 25,100. You can then fill in the missing balance carried down of 20,100 by looking at the difference between the total and the amount of 5,000 on the credit side. Once you've entered it there as the missing figure, you will then bring it down on the debit side on July the 1st as a balance brought down of 20,100. You are then able to start the next month with this amount as representing what stock you actually have on hand that you can sell. The bank account you will balance in exactly the same way. It has totals of 85,750 as the debit side was bigger. You then fill in the missing amount on the credit side above the total and bring it down on the debit side below the total on July the 1st as a balance brought down of 67,470. The sales account will get a subtotal of 96,250, cost of sales a subtotal of 55,000, and wages a subtotal of 10,450. Your stationery will have a subtotal of 13,130, and water and electricity 4,200. Telephone 5,400. Once you've done this, you are ready to enter the trial balance figures. You will use the balances that are in the general ledger account at the end of the month. Capital is B1 and has a credit balance of 125,000. Drawings is 5,500 on the debit side. Equipment 40,000 debited. Trading stock 20,100 on the debit side. Bank 67,470 in the debit side. Sales in the nominal account section is N1 with a credit balance of 96,250. Cost of sales, 55,000 is debited. Wages has a debit of 10,450. Stationery a debit of 13,130. Water and electricity a debit of 4,200. And telephone a debit of 5,400. You will then total both sides to check if they are equal. You should find that a total of 221,250 appears in both the debit and credit columns, indicating that you have recorded the accounts correctly according to the double entry principle. You can now work on exercise 4.9, which is a formative assessment. Notice that there is a time allocation given of 40 minutes. Try to stick within this time, as it will give you a good indication of whether you would be ready or not to write a test on this section. If you're not ready, go back and do some more revision.